Woohoo! And we're live on a Friday for another masterclass. And today I'm talking about LinkedIn for introverts, for authors, and everything else. And thank you for joining me. Everybody who's here today, thank you for joining me. It's been a long time since I've done a live by myself. So this is always going to be fun. And I luckily have something prepared to help me stay on track because I have a tendency to just kind of talk too much sometimes. So, anyways, our talk today is why introverts have the advantage on LinkedIn. And I'm going to just start off by saying I know that this title is probably going to ruffle a lot of feathers because extroverts are probably thinking, well, wait, what about us? What about us? Well, you guys can do LinkedIn great. And, many of you do, and it's wonderful. But what I want to talk about today is specifically for introverts. Although extroverts, I'm glad you're here because you might learn something about your introvert friends. And specifically with introverts, we're probably about one half to one third of the population. And yet, it's an extrovert world. And so if you kind of feel as an author that it's kind of noisy on LinkedIn and you're not sure how to do it and not get burnt out, that's what I want to address today. But I actually want to take it to a different level and just talk about how actually being an introvert can be an advantage on LinkedIn. We think that being an introvert is something we need to apologize for and we can't keep up with the extroverts. That's not true. We can do stuff. And I am an introvert and I have found LinkedIn to be a wonderful platform for introverts. So that's what I'm going to share today. And so we're just going to get stuck right in. So I don't like to do death by PowerPoint. I like to do death by memes. I like to just kind of put different graphics up because then it helps me remember what I was going to talk about, but also to hopefully it will be interesting for you guys as well. And so for this meme here, it's like you see this little guy going, okay, introverts, this is our time. What do you want? And they're like, to unite. And it's like, how are we going to do that separately? And that is exactly why I chose to do this as a LinkedIn Live. Because here's what happens. Introverts, we like to learn and we like to go to webinars and we like to go to LinkedIn Live events and different things where we're learning. But we always kind of have this little bit of like, oh, is it a webinar? Is it a Zoom meeting? And so I'll just let you in on a secret. Yesterday, I went to a webinar event and it was a great event. But about 10 minutes before the webinar, I was just like, I wonder if this is a webinar or a Zoom meeting. Does this mean that I need to brush my hair or not brush my hair? Those type of things. And I thought, oh, I'm sure it's going to be a webinar. But anyways, I showed up. Sure enough, it was not a webinar. It was a Zoom meeting. And there was like 150 people or something like that. And you saw all the little Zoom boxes. And as an introvert, I just went, it sapped my energy in a second. And so what I had to do is I had to actually go into speaker mode so that I would see the speaker on the screen, and then it would make all the little Zoom people just be a few boxes at the top of the screen. I had to do that because I get in overwhelm when I have too much stimulation. So that's just something about me. But this is what I like about a LinkedIn Live, though. When you're on a LinkedIn Live, we're all here together. I can go and look at the comments right now, and I can see that there are people here. If people are going to tell me, yeah, we can't hear you, we can't hear you, I would know that. I can see that in the comments. If I want, I can bring the comments in at any time during this 1 hour that we have together for however long anybody decides to stay with me today. And I can answer questions live, and you guys all get to be united separately. You're all in your own homes. You could be, watching this on the replay 2 hours later, 2 days later. It doesn't matter. And that's what I love about LinkedIn Lives. And as an introvert, you would think, why do you do lives, Jillian? Why don't you just do recorded videos? Well, I actually find recorded videos more stressful because I'm going to go overthink it. I'm going to try and make it perfect, and it can't be perfect. It has to just be a conversation. So anyways, that's why I chose this meme today. I hope that you find it as cutesy as I did, because it is absolutely so true. Okay, so enough of that chit chat. Let's just start talking about what exactly does it really mean to be an introvert. So the first thing that I want to tell you is that not all introverts are the same. And I actually grew up, truly, until I think I was maybe in my 30s. I didn't even know I was an introvert. I knew I was a person who read books, but everybody reads books. So it's just like introverts, extroverts, everybody reads books. So that's kind of not really a true definition. Oh, you just like books, you must be an introvert. And so I actually grew up thinking there was something wrong with me because I didn't want to participate as much as everybody else, or I would go to parties and I would be fatigued. And a lot of things happened in my childhood where my mom would, once my mom took me to a ballet class, and I got there and I was like overstimulated. I heard all the ballerinas and they were thumping, and there was music and lights and mirrors. And my high sensitivity shut down. And I just wanted to sit under a desk and just kind of take it all in. But at that point in time, nobody knew that kid was introverted. And so my mom was frustrated and we left, and it was like I got yelled at on the way home. So I grew up thinking, being me, there was something wrong with me. So once I hit my 30s, and I actually, I got a psychology degree and that sort of thing, and I learned about personality types, it all fell into place for me. And so I'm what's called an INFJ. And I'm not going to tell you what that means, and it would be boring for you. But what I want you to know is that on a spectrum, so sort of like from 0 to 100, think of extroverts to introverts. On the spectrum, I'm 88% introverted. So I'm not 100%, I'm 88%. And if you do a personality test, you might find if you're an introvert, you're at a totally different place, because there's a place called 16personalities.com. It uses Myers-Briggs. Go take this test. Don't do it now. I want you to stay on the live. But to this test, it's completely free, and it's a game changer because you'll learn what your 4 initials are. And if anybody's taken it, please if you feel comfortable, please put that in the chat, because I think it really helps. I know INFJs as soon as I meet them. And by coincidence, some of my best friends are INFJs, and we learned later that we were INFJs. So it kind of feels that once you know your personality type, I put it on my LinkedIn profile so that other people can see, oh, so am I. They raise their hand. So anyways, there's 16 personalities. Half of them are extroverts and half of them are introverts. And I just wanted to let you know, all introverts are not the same. There's 8 actually distinct personality types that are introverts. And we're not even talking about ambiverts. Ambiverts are somebody who's like in that middle between being an extrovert and an introvert. And so actually, if you're an ambivert and you're here today, some of this stuff might ring for you and some of it might not, because you're kind of in that middle there. So anyways, I just wanted to let you know, all introverts are not the same. So here's the biggest myth buster. People think, oh, how could you possibly be an introvert, Jillian, because you're not shy? Well, shyness has nothing to do with being an introvert. Yes, some introverts are shy. That is true. But shyness is more about a fear of judgment, and that's sort of a whole different thing. So just because you're not shy does not mean that you're an introvert. They're totally different things. And so is confidence. Some people think, well, extroverts are confident and introverts are not confident, so that's the difference. No, that's not the difference at all, because confidence, you can be an introvert and be very, very confident. You can be an extrovert and have terrible self-confidence. So again, shyness and confidence have nothing to do with being an introvert. So you might be saying, okay, so what's the difference? So the biggest thing, I got a little graphic up here talking about the key differences between introverts and extroverts. So the biggest thing is about energy. Energy is the key. It is the key to what introverts are, because introverts can kind of put on that show and show up to parties and social events and things like that, but that's not their natural energy, and very, very quickly their battery drains quickly. And so we have to really think and have those boundaries about how much socializing we can actually do, because if we want to boost our battery, we have to have time alone. And extroverts are the opposite. Extroverts will go to a party or a conference or a networking event, and they leave and they go, "I'm jazzed." They're so excited. They see people and it's like a fuel for them. Whereas with extroverts, they'll leave the party and they're like, "Oh, I'm so tired now." So that's the biggest key, is the energy, and also to the preference for whether you like to be in small groups or big groups. If I'm in a small group, I'm quite talkative. I'm happy to participate in the conversation. So like if you put me at a dinner party with like 3 or 4 friends, I'm happy. Put me in a Zoom call with 3 or 4 friends, I'm happy. Put me in a giant Zoom call, yikes. I that's like a big event is not good for me. I don't like big parties. I get kind of freaked out going to big networking events, and I have to psych myself up to do those kind of things. So the preference for smaller groups is also something that really defines being an introvert. Also, too, we do a lot of thinking, and introverts do a lot of thinking. Everything's going on in our head. We probably overthink things more than anybody else on the planet. Introverts are just like, you don't hear what's going on in my brain. My brain never shuts down. It's going 24/7 here. And we're also very introspective. We like to really take our time and think about things. So often, you'll ask for an introvert's opinion. They got to think about it for a second. They're not quick to just blurt it out. Whereas extroverts, a lot of extroverts, they like to, they like to leave you voice messages because that's how they think. That's, they're talking real time. That's how they process information. Whereas an introvert kind of wants to think about things and dwell on it for a little bit. So those are some of the key differences. Now, if you're an introvert, you can totally relate to this graphic, and that, this is your typical daily schedule. You have your meeting, and it's the time recovering from the meeting, from being social, and then psyching yourself up for the meeting in the first place, because this is how we feel. It's like we have to have that alone time. So for instance, on this live today, there's no way that I could have done a back-to-back call. There's no way that I could have met somebody and then said, "Oh, I'm going to go live in 5 minutes. I have to get off the call." I can't do that sort of thing. So I actually block in my calendar when I'm doing a live, 1 or 2 hours, sometimes a whole day, but 1 or 2 hours before the live. I don't have anything, because I know I would be toast by the time I showed up for the live. And once the live is over, I'm probably going to go to the beach today, because if I'm doing an hour live and I'm talking, I'm on, even though I don't have anybody here in the room with me, but I have you guys with me. So I'm not actually alone today. So that's just kind of an interesting thing. So at this point, I'm going to just pop over and get a few questions, because I want to see who's here with me today. And that, to me, this is the awesome part about doing a LinkedIn Live. I'm not alone, but even if I was alone, I'd be okay with it, because I know that people would catch the replay. And also too, I got to turn this into an article later too. So, it's all good. It's all good. But anyways, I got the lovely Jeff Young, who always tunes in from YouTube just to let me know that I'm coming in from YouTube as well, who is always greetings in the front row of YouTube land. I have Elle here today. Thank you for being here, and hello all. And again, this is another nice thing for introverts, in that you're not only listening to me, hopefully you're listening to me, but you're also connecting with other people in a very gentle way. It's not an icky networking event. It's very gentle in that you can say hi to everybody. People actually come to my lives and they get to know other people that come to my lives, which is always kind of wonderful. And then they'll go off and connect. And then later I'll see that, they went out and had a Zoom call together and stuff like that. So it's really nice that you can do that. So thank you for being here. And thank you for saying hello to everybody else, Elle. I love that. So Yolanda says, hello, Jillian. So it's wonderful that she's here. Thank you for being here today, Yolanda. Jeff says, most of the best teachers I have ever met are introverts. I love that. I love that. And it's interesting. A lot of teachers also become authors because, if you teach something, then there's a tendency that you want to write about it as well. And I actually heard Susan Cain, who, if you don't know her, she wrote the book Quiet, which is like the Bible for any introvert. Go read that book. You'll understand yourself. And she actually says that 80% of authors are introverts. So I think teachers become authors, 80% are introverts. There's no science for that, actually. As a research nerd, I looked, and there's no science for that, although it is a commonly held belief that 80% are introverts. So that's kind of interesting. So Yolanda is saying hello, hello. David is here. He's saying hello. I'm so happy you guys are here. Murray is here. Greetings, everyone. I love this. I love this. Hair looks great, Jillian. Thank you very much. I like that. Good hair day today. And Jeff says, introverts recharge their energy by being themselves. Extroverts recharge their energy by being around other people. And that is so true. And I have to always think about, back in the time of COVID, how introverts were just like, this is kind of like okay with me. Like COVID wasn't okay, but that whole social distancing, we were like, okay, we can be with this. We're happy being on Zoom calls as opposed to going out and meeting people. And extroverts were like, I'm dying. I just got to see people again. So it's just so interesting how the recharging of the batteries is so, so important. So Jeff says, yes, as an extrovert, my mouth turns over before my brain even gets in gear. And stay tuned, Jeff, because I'm actually using you as an example later in the live today, because I want you to see a couple of things that I said. So Yolanda says, INFPT. Okay, I love that. So she has gone and done the Myers-Briggs, and we actually share 3 out of 4 lessons, 3 out of 4 letters together, Yolanda, which makes me realize why you are the way you are and why I like you, because we have so much in common. And except for that last letter, P versus J, we are like twinnies. We are personality trait twinnies. And I love that because I immediately understand that. And I've actually done so much with the Myers-Briggs, and nothing, this is just like self-interest nerdiness of like reading lots of books and studying. There's a really good book called Please Understand Me. That's another really good on personality types with the Myers-Briggs, that I can almost like sit down and figure out somebody before they've even taken the test. And so it really helps me when I can identify that, especially with clients, because then I know, okay, this is how I am, but I need to know how they are so that I can communicate well with them. So I think that's just really, really important to have that and know about that. Okay, so I'm just going to go back and continue on. So why is, and I'll turn off the comments so that I have that. Okay, so why is introversion a LinkedIn superpower? Because I actually believe it is. And, it's interesting because most of the assumptions for LinkedIn training would be that like, be like an introvert and be like an extrovert, not an introvert. And introverts often really struggle with LinkedIn because they're like, how do I get on here? Remembering the whole energy thing. How do I get on here and protect myself? How do I protect my energy? How do I not get burnt out? And some of us come from, that's why we don't do platforms like Instagram. Instagram to me is yelling, it's shouting. It's just, there's no interaction on Instagram versus or not to me. So I don't want to diss people that I love my Instagram. That's okay. It's just not for me. It's too shouty. So I like LinkedIn because LinkedIn, I can use my superpower of being an introvert and do well on this platform, and I have seen other introverts do well on this platform. This platform is actually the best social media platform for introverts, and I hope that I can back that up. So let's talk about how introverts are during a conversation, because think of LinkedIn. It's not a broadcast tool. LinkedIn, if you do it right, LinkedIn is a conversation. Just like today, I wanted to go to the comments and bring you guys into the conversation. I will continue to have a conversation with you in the comments after this live is over, because to me, that is the beauty of LinkedIn. It is not a broadcast tool. It can be, but it is the power is when you have those conversations, and hopefully those conversations turn into connections and clients and everything else. So let's step back for a second and think about how are introverts doing what are they doing in a conversation? So 70% of the time, introverts, they're listening. And then they're doing a lot of thinking. 20% of their time, they're doing more thinking than they're actually doing talking. Talking is 10%. And that's what makes us great podcast hosts, makes us great LinkedIn Live hosts when we have a guest, because we can listen to our guests, we ask questions. We're really good. We're actually good in social situations because we don't talk about ourselves. Introverts will go into a conversation and they will just ask questions. That's our secret sauce. Don't tell anybody, but that's our secret sauce. And afterwards, the extrovert will leave the conversation saying, "Oh, they're such a great conversationalist." And yet you know nothing about me because I don't tell you anything about me. I actually ask you questions. But this actually comes in handy on LinkedIn, because think about it. When you're listening, you're also doing what's called social listening. So when you're going and you're looking at people's posts and you're seeing what your connections have to say, you go to their profiles, these different things, you're listening to them as opposed to just talking at them. And that to me is an advantage. And you do a lot of thinking, and then you do your talking. So having that blend, I think actually goes really, really well with LinkedIn. So one of the things that makes us actually introverts are really nerdy with research, in that they say, never fact check an introvert. They don't just say things. They've read, researched, reflected, and watched an 8-hour documentary twice before they even open their mouth. And it's so true. I have the tendency to go down the Google rabbit hole so much that I have to guard myself. But on the same token, that means that when I go to post something on LinkedIn, I've done that fact checking. If I see a quote, I'll go find out who made that quote. What did they say? What was the context of that? When I write an article, a lot of people say, your articles, there's so much content there, Jillian. That's because I'm a research nerd, and I really went and figured out exactly what I want to say before I put that all in. Same with, you will never, ever see me go and do something that somebody did to me recently. In a DM, they actually sent me a DM that said, "Have you ever considered writing a book?" That was their first DM to me. And I was like, "Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? I have written 6 books and I'm a business book coach. And that is your lead question that you ask me in the DMs." It's just like, fail, epic fail. And you will never find me doing that, because if I'm going to reach out to you, I've done my research first. So this slide is absolutely true. And one thing I want to talk to you about is that there are tons and tons of introverts on LinkedIn who are influencers. I call them influencers with a small I, because they are all self-disclosed introverts. And actually, you probably wouldn't even know that they're introverts unless they told you. And that's what's so interesting. And I've got 8 of them up on the screen. Some of them I'm connected with, some of them I'm not connected with. And so you should, I hate to use the word should, because should is like such a trigger word for people. But if you're an introvert and you're feeling like, I don't have a place on LinkedIn because I have to be loud, you don't have to be loud. You can be quiet, and you can have influence, and you can have thoughtful influence. And look at these people. 4 of them out of the 8 that I'm showing up on the screen right now are top voices. So that's kind of almost an oxymoron that an introvert could be a top voice, but it's not about being loud. It's about being thoughtful. And all of these people, if you go and follow them on LinkedIn, you'll find their content is very thoughtful. You'll find that they're champions of introverts. And that's why they're self-disclosing that they are introverts, because they're out there trying to kind of rah, 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 team introvert. You're doing good. You're doing good. So with that, I'm going to go back and hit our comments again, because I like to keep you guys in the show with me, So John says, great to see you at a different time to usual, Jillian, watching you live on YouTube. Oh, I love that he's on YouTube. So that's great. That's great. So Dave says, working from home during COVID. Okay, done that for years. Yeah. It was just like, not an issue for many of us. We were just like, okay. And it was almost like once COVID was over, it was like, oh no, now you go back out in the world and there's so many people. It was like, I kind of got used to it being so quiet. So that was us. I love this. Marcia says, introverts are phenomenal speakers. And that is actually true. And it's interesting because introverts do like to speak. They do TED Talks. Marcia's done a TED Talk. They do TED Talks. They host webinars. They do all sorts of different things. They do keynotes. You see lots of introverts do speakers. But you will never see that they wing it. That's the difference. An introvert is going to be very, very clear about what they're going to talk about. They're going to think it through. They're probably going to prepare like nobody's business. Extroverts do that too, but you will never see them just wing it. They really like to think it all through first. So they like to speak, but they think before they speak. So that's what's always so important. So Jeff says, David, what's your sign? I mean, your Myers-Briggs standpoint, of course. So, and Jeff, I hope you pop yours in. I know you did in the meme, but I hope you will pop yours in again, because I do love knowing everybody's sign. Roxana says, hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm glad you're here. Jeff says, Marcia, totally agree, my friend. Totally agree. And Murray says, got that right. So I don't know what it was, but I'm glad I got it right. So that's good to know. Ouch, fact checkers. I will be taking orders for t-shirts. That absolutely should go on a t-shirt because it's so true. And David, I will actually send you the longer quote because it even goes on longer. And I thought, I don't want to overwhelm people on the screen. So I did the shortened version. But yeah, that definitely belongs on a t-shirt for sure. And Marcia says, Jillian, one day I will be quiet. So that's good. That's good. And Yolanda says, Goldie Chan wrote a book about being an introvert. Yes, she did. She wrote a book about personal branding for introverts. So that is one that I will put in the comments because I think it's good for introverts, especially if you're authors, and even if you're not authors. I always love recommending books that people can read and say, oh, now I totally get it. That helps me because so many things are written for an extrovert world, because that's the default. The world by default is extroverts. And to be honest with you, that's why I didn't do well working in an office, because I didn't get an office. I never had an office. I was in a cubicle and I was always in an open environment, and people could just come and lean over my cubicle and talk to me at any time. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like I need a door, like I just had nowhere to be alone. So I would do things like go for walks and, have lunch on my own and things like that. As an entrepreneur, I love working from home because when I need to go into deep work, I just go on do not disturb mode, and it's great. And I have my partner is my husband, who is a fellow introvert. So that's really good because we can parallel play together, and that works really well for me. Yolanda, Jeff says, can't believe we are not connected. Just sent you an invite. Isn't that nice? Isn't that nice? I love that. I love that. And Elle says, I enjoy LinkedIn for its conversations. I'm an introvert, but chatty here somehow. I'm on Facebook. but dislike it for lack of conversation. People on Facebook tend to scroll and click on pics they like, even on a cute dog that just passed away. So on Facebook, I'm loud with pics of my book and not much more. People just don't talk over there, I think. Wow, that's very insightful. That's very insightful that you said that. I like that. And I agree so much with what you just said. And that's kind of why I left Facebook, because I found it just overwhelming. I just found it overwhelming. I stopped doing it for business. And then a couple of years later, I stopped doing it for personal reasons. And it was just like, I'm with my family. I have my family in a WhatsApp group chat. Anything I want to know about my family, I have in there. And then friends, I just deal with my friends one-on-one, but gigantic, a 1,000 friends on Facebook, but I don't actually know any of them. Like, if I can't ask you to come help me move, you're not a friend. So it's like, I don't want to be Facebook friends with people that I wouldn't actually have a cup of tea with. So that's it for me. So no way. So, okay. So where do we get the edge? Because I'm talking about, LinkedIn being an advantage for introverts. So I'm going to talk about profiles. So your profile, think of it as a business card on steroids, and that your profile is working for you 24/7. And introverts, if you're not already doing this, you should be investing your time in your profile, because you can direct people back there. Hopefully, when people see your content and they want to think about connecting, they're going and looking at your profile. And the key is, think about the things on your profile that you would rather your profile say for you than you. So even little things like using that audio pronunciation, that's a dream for introverts. You can think about what you want to say, have that recorded, and have that sitting on your profile. We used to have a profile video, which was such a wonderful thing, but they got rid of it. But even your headline, think about how that headline follows you everywhere on LinkedIn. If you've ever been to those, sort of networking breakfasts where you have to do like your 1-minute elevator pitch, and you're just like, oh, I hate those. And I hate, memorizing it. Well, that could be your pitch. And again, you can think about it. You can decide how you want that to be. You can make it perfect and put it up there so that it takes the stress away by having that be the thing that you would like to say that you find difficult to say yourself. And then things like your about section and your featured section, these can be the things that you're like, hey, I want people to notice this, that you're kind of putting all that stuff out there. And one thing I highly recommend for introverts is that you make sure your about section isn't so much about you and more about who you are trying to reach, so that the person reading it, whether your client is an extrovert or an introvert, that they can see some of themselves immediately, that it's like, oh, this person speaks to me. They know what I'm talking about. So again, thinking back on conversations, your about section is actually just a big conversation. It's the conversation starter, where what you're actually saying is, hey, I'm listening to my client. I'm thinking about what they need. And now I'm doing the talking, using that as my framework. So I really think our profiles, spending that extra time, really can get you seen. And then things like your featured section, put things that are really gonna, wow people, that really in a nutshell capture you, that you have a hard time saying. Maybe that's where you're gonna put your salesiest stuff, because you're gonna feel more comfortable with people can, click through and read what they want to read, and pass over what they don't want to read. So I think this is just such a great opportunity. And, you think about like comparing it to like Twitter or Instagram. It's like, you don't have a big, huge profile like this. You just have a tiny little profile. So LinkedIn, if you think about it, it's like, wow, it's incredible what you can do for your profile and how you can have it speak for you. So here's where I'm using Jeff Young as my example, and I'm asking for forgiveness instead of asking for permission. But remember, I talked about, introverts are fact checkers and research nerds and stuff like that. Well, we That's a superpower, folks. That is a superpower for introverts. And what we can do is, before we engage with anyone, I'm thinking of Jeff going Star Trek mode on me, engage. Before you engage with anybody, you can be prepared. And how you do that is by going to somebody's profile. And there's this fabulous feature that if you just click on that little more button, you can download a profile PDF. So it's a summary, and it's kind of the highlights. LinkedIn gives you the highlights. So if you want to reach out and connect with somebody, you could take this and read through it and kind of see, what do I have in common with this person? Or as an introvert, maybe you're going to have a Zoom call, a get to know you. That causes a lot of anxiety for introverts. We're just like, oh my gosh, is this person going to sell me stuff? What is going to happen? I love to tell the story of Jeff Young, that when I first met Jeff Young, I thought he was my very, very, very first Zoom call on LinkedIn, where it was just one of those get to know you sessions. And I thought, what is he going to sell me? And I didn't know Jeff was retired and he has nothing to sell. So I was at ease, but I didn't know this secret back then. And I could have prepared by reading this and seeing a little bit about Jeff before the meeting. If I wanted to, I could even print it out and have it handy, or put it on my iPad, or maybe extrapolate some questions that I'm going to ask somebody before a meeting, so that I have that prep work done and I have less anxiety. So being prepared is just so good. And LinkedIn does that wonderful with your profile. So, okay, I'm going to hop back over to some comments again. And let's see where we are at. I don't want to miss anybody. Okay, so Marcia says, introverts absolutely do not wing it. That is so true. It's just like, I don't even think that's in our vocabulary. We can't possibly wing it. So that is absolutely so true. So Yolanda says, Jeff Young, it's my pleasure to connect. So isn't that nice? And okay. So I missed it earlier. So Jeff says he is an ESFJ. So here we go. So I told you guys earlier that I'm an INFJ. So Jeff and I match on 2 out of 4 letters, which makes me realize why we could be such dear and sweet friends with each other. Because F and J means that we're very heart-centered. So an F is you lead with your feelings. You're very feeling oriented, which, Jeff and I are very heart buddies. And then J are people who are detailed oriented. They want to, they're not going to just, oh, okay, we'll meet sometime. They're like, what time, what day? Here's the Zoom link. I got it in my calendar. Is there an add to calendar? They're very, very detailed mind. They plan everything. If they say I'm going to speak at somebody's conference, then I'm going to put that on my calendar. I'm going to know, okay, I'm going to have my outline to them in 2 months, and yada, 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 that sort of thing. So Jeff and I are very, very aligned on 2 out of 4. So I love that. I love that, Jeff. So Kathy says, just got here. Glad there will be a recording. Oh, yes, there's always a recording, which is always a nice thing. I love that. I love that. And I'm glad you're here, Kathy. Jillian, I missed the profile review session. Can you look at my profile and tell if any place needs correction? Not in the context of a live. I can't do that, but I can go afterwards and look at your profile, and I'll let you know. Okay. Elle says, read my profile. Recently, I had a friend on the phone with me as he viewed my profile, scrolling through, giving me his input. I had just made a couple of updates, thanks to Jeff. So isn't that nice? I am always learning and open to updates for my profile. And here's a tip, Elle, and I think other people should do that too, is take your profile, download the summary, like I said, and upload that to ChatGPT, and put in as a prompt, this is what this is my profile. This is my target client. This is my ideal client, and put who you are looking to attract as a client, and ask ChatGPT, or maybe you use Claude or Perplexity. It doesn't matter which AI you use, and ask it, is this happening? There's other things too. Kevin D. Turner did a fabulous thing about using AI to make sure that you're going to be found with, are you using keywords in your profile and all sorts of different things like that. So if you want to take it up a notch, I'll see if I can find Kevin's article and put that in the comments as well, because I thought that was really good about, does your profile have the right words that's going to attract people and you're going to show up on a LinkedIn search. So I think that's really important too. But think of your clients first, your ideal clients, and ask the AI, what does it think, and give you pointers. So but humans reviewing it too is also good, Elle. So I think that's good. David says, fantastic profile tips, Jillian. Audit from my notes. Yay, yay. Okay, good. Elle says, the LinkedIn profile is like a mini website. It's quite a powerful tool, unavailable in other places. Absolutely true. And then the very fact that you can even have the connected company page as well, that can be working for you. I personally don't spend a lot of time on my company page, but I did set it up so that it's echoing, it's echoing what I do. So I think that's really, good to know that. Jeff says, great tip, Jillian. You can do that download for any profile you are interested in checking out. And of course, your own. So that's a good thing to do. And, here's another thing that you can do with AI. It's like, say, for instance, I was going to have a meeting with somebody. I could download my own profile and I could download, say I was going to meet Kathy York. And I know Kathy and she's been a guest on my show. I know Kathy, backwards and forwards. But if I was meeting Kathy for the first time, I might want to say, I'm trying to figure out some similarities that we might have in common and things that maybe are totally different that would really be good for me to address during our call. I could take Kathy's profile and my profile and feed them up into ChatGPT or, whatever AI tool I want to use and ask for some tips. What are some things that you see that would be some good questions that I could come to the meeting with? So again, AI can really do some amazing things for you. So I think that's good to know. All right. So I'm going to pick up where I got to turn off. I always got to remember to turn off the comment and go to the next. Okay, here we are. Okay, there we go. Okay, so now I want to talk about content. So we talked about your profile. We talked about how, your own profile, searching other people's profile and why that's important. But now I'm going to talk about content. And here's the thing. People think there's only one type of content on LinkedIn, or this is commonly misunderstood. People are just like, oh, it's videos and pictures. That's kind of like what jumps off the screen at you. But in reality, and again, this is why I love LinkedIn, there is so many different forms of content that you can create. And I remember once, a couple of years ago, I think Jeff Young had talked about Shelley I'm going to mess up her last name. Shelley Ellsberger. Oh, I'm messing up her name. Shelley, we know Shelley. He talked about have you tried all these different things on LinkedIn? And one of them was the different forms of content. And I challenge introverts, go and check out, maybe all you've thought about was videos or a graphic, a selfie. There is so many other kinds of forms of content. Polls are good because introverts like asking questions. So polls are something that's wonderful. And polls can do double duty because you can take a poll and then afterwards you can take the results and turn that into a post. So people should be using polls to their fullest. You can do some amazing things. Introverts could even take it and now make it an article. And I've actually done posts where I've taken the comments and the things that people had to say, and I've put their comments actually into my post. And I actually did a document post, and I would just paste in some of those comments, and then I tag everybody to let them know, hey, I liked what you had to say on this topic. And those did really, really well. So then you also have things like text posts. You can just do a post that's nothing but text. It's just amazing. You can do an image post that's multiple images. You can do GIFs. If you don't want to do a video, you can just do a screen share video if you don't want to be on camera. You can do a document post, which is a slider. There's so many forms of content, articles. You can do a newsletter. So just know there's more content than you can think about. But the important thing for my introvert buddies here is about your energy. So think about when you're trying different content, what zaps your energy. So here's a little cutesy me, my social battery at a party. I'm 100% charged, and then I quickly turn to 70%, 40%, and zero. I'm out of there. So it's like your batteries, your energy is so, so important. And that is true with your content. If you find doing a video saps the living life out of you, don't do them. Don't do them. I don't do very many pick up my phone videos because it saps the life out of me. But I will do a LinkedIn Live and I will repurpose a video clip from the live because to me, that's easy peasy. That's content I've already created. So that's easy for me. I like to do GIFs. I like to do articles. Articles are my sweet spot. I do an article once or twice, at least once a week, I do an article. So think of your energy and what works for you. Polls, they don't take hardly any energy at all. So that's easy to do. So make sure you're aligned with your energy. And with introverts, we are all about being clear and concise and articulating our thoughts. We love writing. That's why probably 80% of book writers are introverts. We love writing. And when we're speaking, we like to write first. We usually like to kind of think our thoughts first and then, talk about them. And this relates to when we actually go to do content, because actually, if you think about it, LinkedIn loves written content because even when you're doing a video, you know what? You got to set that video up with some writing. And even if you're doing a graphic, you got to set that graphic up with some writing. So you can do that and just realize that being somebody who likes to write gives you the advantage. Because can you imagine if you were the kind of person that loved doing video, but you hated writing anything about what your video was about? That would be a disadvantage. And I've seen some people do that. They've literally just posted the video and it's just like, well, wait a minute, there's no hook. There's no call to action at the end. There's nothing. And then there's kind of going, why am I not getting any traction? And I know a lot of people that just post YouTube videos and all they do is they post the link. They don't even have any written content. And you're just like, well, that's why your post isn't getting any engagement because you didn't put any writing in. So writing is really, really important. And one thing I want you to know is that, again, with the battery recharging, in an extroverted world, any LinkedIn trainer that will tell you, oh, you have to post, 5 days a week, 365 times a year. You do not have to do that. And introverts, I'm giving you the permission that a good week for you might just be once a week, twice a week. Jeff is an extrovert. He posts once a week. I post traditionally, or usually, typically, 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Those are my 3 days. On the weekend, I don't typically post because I need downtime, and that's my breathing room. Do you remember that graphic with, the typical day of getting ready for the meeting and the prepared before and the prepared afterwards? My weekends are my prepared after and prepared for. That's my downtime on the weekends. That's when I have to go to the beach and I want to read a book and I don't want to do social media. I might be a lurker. On the weekend. I'll come in and I actually make sure that nobody knows when I'm on LinkedIn. So I've turned mine off. Hopefully I have that notification because it's just like, I want to be able to just pop in, read stuff, and then sometimes I'll save it and I'll comment later. But I'll sometimes do that on the weekend. But ordinarily, I need that breathing room. So I spend my other days of the week on LinkedIn. So my Tuesdays and my Thursdays and the weekend is usually commenting on other people's posts. And that's a good thing to do. That's what we want to do. That's part of the conversation. So that's a good week on LinkedIn is allowing yourself to have that breathing room and just recognizing you don't have to have a broadcast message every single day. So I think that's really, really important. So, okay, how do we engage on our own terms? So this Ben Affleck just and this picture just kills me, scrolling through the LinkedIn feed on Monday morning. When I look at LinkedIn on Monday morning, I'm just like, oh my gosh, it's overwhelming. It just feels like everybody's shouting, everybody's posting at the same time. And you're just like, oh, so I actually don't scroll through the feed. I don't scroll through the feed on Monday morning. And I usually don't scroll through the feed pretty much ever. I'm not, because I find it saps my energy. Anytime I just scroll, I feel like I get off kind of going, oh, I'm so drained. I'm so drained. So I'm very purposeful of, I will actually look at notifications as opposed to the feed. And I look at notifications and I will actually kind of go, oh, that looks like something and I'm intentional of which ones I want to visit. I also use on the notifications mentions. I want to make sure that I respond to anybody who has mentioned me because I don't ever want to appear rude. So I want to make sure that I continue that conversation, in a comment or something. So I do that as well. And again, it's about our energy and protecting us and having those boundaries. And sometimes if I do want to scroll through the feed, I do it late at night, which is, it's quiet. It's quiet when you go on LinkedIn late at night. The only people there are my Australian friends. And it's just like, I love my Australian friends. So, definitely go at your own pace. And also too, I just want to just say, if you do like scrolling through the feed, you can control your feed and you can, kind of tidy it up by unfollowing people that you don't want to see their content. And you know what? That does not disconnect you. It just means their content is not going to come up in front of you. And if you're just like, I don't like this person's posts, they're just noisy and yada, 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 but I don't want to not be connected with them, just unfollow their posts. And you know what? They'll never know. LinkedIn doesn't tell them. So that's really good to know. Okay. So we like conversations. Introverts like conversations, and we like quiet conversations. And that's where the power of commenting comes in. And that again is an advantage for introverts because we listen and then we comment. And so we tend to leave very relevant comments. I don't know a lot of introverts that are going to go and buy some sort of weird AI tool that's going to post all those comments. That's just not something we do because we would want them to represent us. So we actually will spend the time going through and making sure our comment is relevant and adds to the post and, just adds some value. So I think that's good. And think of those as very quiet public conversations that could lead to private conversations, or maybe could lead you to having a new connection. So a lot of time I will actually, if I've had a couple of comments in a public conversation with somebody and I'd like to connect with them, I can now feel, that they'll know who I am now. So I can go ahead and, click connect. And I only get 3 invitation, things that I can send a month because I'm on the free plan. So that's my superpower of how I can connect with people is I'm just very polite and leave a couple of comments first, and then they know who I am. And then the quiet conversations then move into the DMs. And that's where you can have quiet conversations. Again, I'm using Jeff as an example. I hope you don't mind, Jeff, where, that's the back channel where the people that I'm connected with, I can actually have an intentional conversation, and you can have group conversations. And that's kind of a nice thing. Sometimes those can be noisy too, and you can leave the conversation. So that's really nice, especially when you're ever doing maybe an introduction with somebody and the people are talking now and you're just like, oh, it's starting to be too much, this conversation going back and forth. You can just leave the conversation because they're connected now. So that's really nice to know that. So using DMs is, again, our superpower of being, listening, thinking, and then doing our talking. I think that's so, so important. So now I will hop back over to the comments and let's see where we're at. I got to tell you guys, it's a challenge kind of keeping track of where I am with everything. So, okay. So talk with Jeff. Here is Kevin's post about using AI on your download data archive. Yay. Thank you, Jeff. That's absolutely perfect. I love that. I love that. Kathy says, oh, combining profile text and asking AI to look for similarities. Me likes that. Me too. I think that's really good. And I do that sometimes for my podcast guests, where it's like, I want to make sure that, I'm being really, really clear about, what we want to talk about. So I'll use that to kind of help me have some ideas as well. Shelly Elsliger. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Jeff. I love that. You are a data nerd like me. I love that. My sister from another mister. Thanks for giving her a shout. And I blew her name. So it's like, but that was a fabulous article that Shelly, well, it was actually more like a PDF. So if you have that, Jeff, if you know where that PDF that Shelly challenged you to, it was like 101 things. Have you done these on LinkedIn? I thought that was a great thing. Kathy says, people forget introverts aren't always shy, but we get our energy internally. We don't get our energy surrounded by noise and people. And that's true. And that's what I talked about in the beginning, Kathy, is that shyness, people assume introverts are shy. That's not true. Many introverts are not shy, and we just function better in a quieter space and in a more intimate space. So it's like, if you're going to meet me for coffee, folks, I want to go to a place that's quiet and not a loud, noisy place, and not with a group of 60. I just want to meet you. And I think that's so important when you can get that straight. And Kathy says, oh, yeah, on posting Mondays and Thursdays for me, quality too, which is important. Yep, weekends off. And Kathy, I'm going to just share something that Kathy talked about on one of my LinkedIn Lives and podcasts. She talked about having a day set aside for learning, which is like such an introvert thing, to actually dedicate one day a week where it's like, that's where I do my learning. That's when that's when you can go down that Google rabbit hole or whatever, or catch up on those videos you wanted to watch and you bought, and the classes you're taking and stuff like that. Actually putting that in your calendar and then saying, I don't book clients that day because that's me day. I think that's always a good thing. So I like that. Murray says, I always start with notifications. Yeah, absolutely. Because that is just so much cleaner and much more intentional. Whereas you go into the feed and you're just like, oh, and the worst thing about the feed is it's a time suck. You start scrolling through that feed and you find yourself draining as you go through it. And a lot of times you can kind of go, oh, like, where am I at in my life? And, whatever. It's like people going, I made 6 figures in a weekend type of thing. And it's, and then you get off LinkedIn and you go, I didn't even do anything. All I did was scroll. I didn't even participate. So, that's absolutely crazy, crazy, crazy. Okay. So let me go back and I want to talk about an introvert friendly LinkedIn plan. So first of all, one of the influencers that I showed you earlier, I think his name was Andrew Yang. And I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but I'll fix it in the comments. So he talked about having your extrovert friend. And this is a good thing for introverts. Have your extrovert friends. And he talks about finding your Cliff. And Cliff is a friend that he had that actually introduced him to people. Now, when I first started on LinkedIn, I had my Quinn, Stephen Quinn. And Stephen Quinn is such an extrovert that he actually didn't ask me, I didn't ask Stephen for help. He just volunteered and he just kept saying, Jillian, I think you should meet these people. He just kept introducing me to other people. And it was like fabulous. And so like one of the people was Mick Adam. I never would have known Mick Adam if it wasn't for Stephen Quinn. He introduced me to Tina Jarvitt. And it's just like Tina Jarvitt and I became best buddies. We've written a book together. Like amazing things have happened. But I'm an introvert. Tina's an introvert. We probably never would have connected if it wasn't for finding my Quinn, Stephen Quinn. So Stephen Quinn, if I go back through my group messages, I have so many Quinn moments of where he introduced me to other people. Never even asked him to do this. He just did it. So introverts, find your Quinn. Find that extrovert that is willing to adopt you and introduce you to other people. Because this is my graphic that I saw this and I so loved it. How introverts make friends. And then the big red part is dogs count as friends. So I thought that was so funny. And then the little teeny part is an extrovert found them, liked them, and adopted them. And so, that's the thing. It's like, we love extroverts. I'm not against extroverts. I love extroverts. Extroverts are joyful people to be with, and I love them. And just, harness that they feel good connecting people. So if you want to meet someone, I wanted to meet Kevin D. Turner. I asked Jeff, I said, can you connect me? He did. We still keep the name of our group chat, the three of us, called Jillian would like to connect with you or something like that. And Jeff did that because he's an extrovert and he feels good connecting people together. So I think that's just so important. And then what I want you to remember is slow and steady wins the race. Introverts, we're team turtle. We are not the rabbit. We're team turtle. And just know slow and steady wins the race. Come on and do LinkedIn on your own terms, which means figure out the content that's right for you. Get your profile together. All of those things so matter with how you do LinkedIn. And it's okay to do it in a way that doesn't burn you out. And if you're a highly sensitive person, a lot of introverts are HSPs, highly sensitive people, just know that you can come in and do this any way you want and you could literally be somebody who all you do is comment and DMs. You don't even post. You don't even have to post. So there's lots of ways that you can do LinkedIn. Just like I talked about taking profiles and putting it up to ChatGPT, one thing I would stress is if you do the free personality test at 16 personalities, by the way, I'm not affiliate or anything. I just love their website. I think it's so cool. You can go and do the free personality test and then they give you a profile. And you can download that as a PDF and upload that to your AI choice and say, help me build a LinkedIn strategy. Upload your profile as well so it knows what you do and say, help build me a LinkedIn strategy. And you might find some amazing things AI can tell you. I love AI. I think you can do also all sorts of awesome things. So you don't need to be loud to be seen. You absolutely don't need to be loud to be seen. And so I just wanted to tell you, Susan Cain, she wrote this book called Quiet: The Power of Introverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking. And if you're an introvert and you have not read this book, go get this book. It's a fabulous book. You'll just think she's talking right to you. And she says, the secret to life is to put yourself in the right lighting. For some, it's a Broadway spotlight, and for others, it's a lamp-lit desk. And I think that absolutely sums it up, that wherever you are on the spectrum of being an introvert or being an extrovert, there's a place for you on LinkedIn. But I just wanted to make sure introverts know that you have an advantage. This platform is made for you. You can do this. And anybody that needs to talk and needs help, whatever, please send me a DM and we'll have a private conversation about how you can be more strategic and use LinkedIn. So with that, I'm going to try and be true to my time and wrap it up since I took an hour today. For everybody who joined today, I thank you very much for being here. I will get to the rest of the comments afterwards and address all those. And I just wanted to let you know that next month, I've got extrovert Kevin D. Turner joining me for a LinkedIn masterclass. But today I wanted to do this one by myself because I wanted to show you that even something as scary as a LinkedIn Live is something that an introvert can do. I've been doing them for years now. And you know what? They're never perfect. You get in, you talk, whatever. But I try to just always make this a conversation. I try to bring everybody into the show as much as possible because I really, really appreciate the people that take the time to come and leave a comment. And if you came today and you just watched and you're quote, quote, a lurker, I don't call you a lurker. I actually call you a quiet reader, a quiet consumer, because that's okay too, because you're here and you're learning. And, I think it's okay to be somebody that you don't have to feel forced to comment. It's okay to just come and consume and learn and listen, because we know at the end of the day, you're going to reach out and work with the people that you feel created value for you. So I think everybody has to do LinkedIn at their own speed and at their own pace. So with that, I'm going to sign off and thank you all for being here. And I'll see you guys next month for another LinkedIn for Authors Masterclass with Kevin D. Turner, probably an extrovert with a capital E. I love Kevin. So he will be here next time. Okay. Bye, everybody.